Hello. Near the end of October, another State of the State with you. We're going to be recording this session, and it's going to be likely posted on the AOE Special Ed website within the next couple weeks. I'm Jacqui Kelleher, and thank you for giving of your time. You are incredibly hardworking, and I know it takes a lot to attend these things or go and view them later. So we appreciate the opportunity to share out with you. So the purpose of these quarterly State of the State meetings is to inform the field and other listeners on updates from the Office of Special Ed Programs and the AOE Special Ed team and our extended team members. Oops. If you can please mute, that would be great. Just hearing some feedback. Thank you so much. So during the State of the State, I don't address, we typically don't have time to address Q&A directly, but if you have questions and you want to put in the chat, or if you want to send me an email, or if you want to invite me to have a conversation, I would love to have a conversation with you. It would be great to talk about it. But we certainly appreciate the outreach from the field and families and other stakeholder groups. So let us know if you have questions about the content or want additional information. I always start with the many fabulous people who are working to serve you, the field, and families. So, with Chris and Tracy, Katie, Cassidy. Note that Cassidy has a new title, Federal and Special Ed Data Director. Brandon, Anna, Betty, Tristan, who's our brand new Special Ed Program Monitoring Manager, has just completed his first month with us. John, Ernie, Simona, Alex, Rebecca. Sienna has also been with us with a month, and she has been working on some on the mentoring project that we have. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And of course, Amy, Alicia, Linda, Claire, and Brad, and Jen. So we all appreciate being able to serve you. I also put this up, the National Association of State Directors of Special Education, and OSEP, have identified for state directors of special ed that, the priorities that we have need to map onto these 5 major objectives that are listed. And so all of the various activities and support services, compliance work, all of those things ultimately map onto these 5 areas. And if they're not, then there's a problem. So the work that we do is trying to streamline all of these many moving parts to be able to ultimately improve outcomes for children and youth with disabilities, and specifically tackle these areas. I have bolded too that we are really, have been working towards finding solutions and doing problem solving with you, and that's around ensuring a qualified workforce, as well as building up our full general supervision system. So thank you for that. Whoopsie. And our vision statement. Just highlighting again for the special ed vision statement that our team put together months and months ago at this point. We had already put on the forefront of our thinking stakeholder engagement, how to be more clear, communicative, transparent, but how to involve the stakeholders, those who have stake in this system, how to ensure that those voices are a part of our own decision making and priority setting. And ironically, this has become also a focus of OSEP, Office of Special Ed Programs, and the engagement of stakeholders. So you'll be hearing a lot about that in the upcoming year. I would like to start with some of the federal updates. There are several documents to just briefly make sure that you have and are aware of general content that they contain, as well as some resources that are pretty exciting and are at no cost to you, but that OSEP is endorsing as some best practice models to share out. So Since we last came together, Office of Special Ed Programs has released some guidance and recommendations, recommended TA and PD. Mostly the information came out the end of August and at the end of September. I've shared some of these key documents with the field over the listserv. And want to just again express how important it is to look at these documents for their content. I just want to feature a few highlights with these documents that I have flagged here. We're doing our own deeper dive of them. First of all is the long COVID under Section 504 in the IDEA. This describes how and to what degree a student may be eligible for services, specifically what is long COVID, its impact on students, and protections and services under IDEA and 504 for students with long COVID, and what to do if a student is experiencing long COVID. So we talked about this at a director's check-in. If there continue to be some questions and concerns, we would like to hear them. I think one of the only things that has been covered so far has been for students that might be experiencing a disability related to long COVID or some post-COVID systems. What category might we likely classify this or make this eligibility determination? And the cases seem to have fallen under other health impairment, but mostly it's been questions and certainly not a lot of movement about an increase under OHI as a result of long COVID, but just a really important tool to just hear about what the Office of Civil Rights has to say and what Office of Special Ed Programs has to say. The Return to School Roadmap #1, this came out August 24th, and its focus is on child find, how we locate, identify, and evaluate. This continues to go on how to address child find in the context of long COVID or post-COVID conditions. It also covers child find beyond long COVID, and it talks about parentally placed students, child find activities, as well as use of IDEA, art funds, ESSER, and GEAR funds to be able to conduct child find activities, and then also child find considerations related to the COVID-19 pandemic. A larger document that came out September 30th is a continuation of the Return to School Roadmap and the focus on IEP in the LRE. And it serves as another critical reminder that IDEA does not provide a general waiver authority of IDEA requirements. OSEP reminds us that the US DOE did not ask Congress for broad waiver authority during the height of the pandemic, and the Secretary does not intend to seek such authority now. And under IDEA, students with disabilities retain their rights to a free, appropriate public education. This document is extremely helpful to refer to regarding virtual and blended learning for students with disabilities and making educational placement decisions, including the overview of least restrictive environment requirements and how OSEP views virtual instruction. In my time working with the requirements and hearing from the OSEP perspective, this is one of the first, well, this is like it's building on a more emphasis on flexibility with respect to instruction. For example, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, a child receiving instruction virtually through their home was definitely considered and messaged as one of the most restrictive environments we could have. And in this Return to School Roadmap edition, OSIP is talking about virtual learning provided during the pandemic may be deemed least restrictive if it's available to all children. And as we continue to go through our environment and the look of virtual learning opportunities for students, how are we considering it for students with disabilities? It's also that OSIP's position that, virtual learning for some students might be that meaningful opportunity that's appropriate to them. Using virtual learning to educate and have students interact with non-disabled peers in the regular ed environment. So I'm just highlighting that there is some reminders about what we know about developing IEP and about educational placement decisions in the LRE, but there's some specific implications for how we consider virtual opportunities for all of our students, including students with disabilities. And then also this summer came out some information about NIMAC and NIMASC, the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Standards and the Center. And in future directors' conversations, we'll be talking about that beginning on Monday. We're going to be hearing from some folks about Bookshare in Vermont as part of getting more current on if we're meeting NIMAS and NIMAC requirements for our state. And then finally, a fact sheet on the American Relief Package, the Part B supplemental funds. That's another one that came out that if you don't already have it in your toolkit is something that is worth looking at. Going through some of these quickly, these are the OSIP funded best practice national technical assistance providers who are specializing in providing resources for our LEAs and for communities and in some cases families as well. And this is one under State Implementation and Scaling Up of Evidence-Based Practices Center at UNC. And some of the videos that they have and some of the podcasts around implementation science that is being endorsed by OSIP and, at no cost. It's just that, the federal investment has been, invested in these particular tools that are good professional development for practitioners and administrators. OSIP has also been highlighting its partnership with the National Center on Intensive Intervention and the Progress Center and the different learning module libraries that are now available around intensive intervention. So these are module opportunities. They have some interactive engagement work. They have some self-assessment strategies, and you can get certificates of completion in going through these modules. So more things that you might be looking for to help build up the capacity within your staff, your needs might align with what NCII and Progress Center can provide to you. So more things that OSIP is saying, promote, this is what we're investing a lot of our Part D dollars in. You all are familiar, obviously, with our, Part B, our 3 to 21, our Part C is birth to 3. Part D is around professional development and technical assistance. So these providers are receiving Part D funds to provide services and supports for all of us at the state level and at the local level. So here are some resources that are available with respect to selecting accessible grade level texts for students with significant cognitive disabilities. Some different tips and some different resources, as well as different materials that are available for you to consider in educating your kids with this profile. Preparing the learning environment, the National Center on Deaf Blindness has a new practice guide, Preparing the Learning Environment. I wanted you to have access to that document, so that has been linked here. We also have a collaborative effort to support school leaders in the area of literacy. We have this video here that is a combination of folks coming together on a Lead for Literacy 5-element framework, bringing together NCII, who's been here before, NCSI, and the CEC, the Council for Exceptional Children, which maintains so many of the standards that we use for our special educators and our pre-service teachers in special education. So this has been another resource that OSIP says, please, check out and consider building into your professional development plan. More and more resources to bring out. This is around transition. And so PROMISE is an acronym. This is continued research and dissemination around transition services and programs. A lot of these materials are around students that are getting the Social Security disability benefit, SSI youth recipients, some of the things to consider for them in terms of transition planning and getting them prepared to go forth after age 21 or 18, depending on when they are exiting special education. So different resources around transition planning that your transition coordinators or those who are focused on transition work might be able to consider in working with transition age youth with disabilities. Some of these also include COVID consideration factors and also looking at learning loss that might have occurred during this time of post-secondary transition for our students. And almost done with these resources. I hope some of these are exciting or new for you. But we also have some more resources that were promoted by OSIP about speech-to-text services, a new redesigned speech-to-text service resource page where you'll find frequently asked questions and tips and some differences around speech-to-text services and things to consider when you are looking to select that particular support for your students. And then fast facts, for those of you who are looking for data nationally within our state, patterns and trends that are happening, across the United States by disability category or across certain environmental education environments. The fast fact sheets have been developed through OSIP that have been enhanced and updated with a hand-in-hand supplemental guide designed to really help you understand and work with your data, and is aimed at helping parents and other stakeholder groups really engage with the data and with the materials. So the fast fact on school-age children, 5 in kindergarten through 21, this is available. And it's another rich data tool that even within my special education team, as part of our own data quarterly meeting, we're going to be referring to some of the national trends and looking how Vermont is performing in different categories, being very careful about how we review or evaluate differences, because every state is different, but it does give a good visual display of data to just incorporate into everybody's work. So now let's transition to some state updates and some Vermont Agency of Education activities. Virtual learning guidance. So based on some questions that have come our way, based on virtual learning options and even like what counts as a school day and what may be considered as a flexible pathway as appropriate for some of our kids, I really wanted to make sure that all of you are aware of the AOE guidance that came out in August. Whether it's our LEAs or our families, but this talks about online and blended opportunities in Vermont for students this school year. Online blended learning is considered one of the many flexible pathways in Vermont, and this could be an effective tool and approach, especially in light of what OSIP is now presenting to states as an important pathway for all students as appropriate. So I'm encouraging folks, if you didn't get access to this guidance that came out in August, to making you aware that this document covers these 5 things that might help you in your decision making as well. And I was curious, we attended, several of us attended the National Association of State Directors of Special Education has been hosting some conferences, and in the conference session, they made some of us attended. They made us aware of the different policy briefs that NASD has on many areas, and in particular, virtual schools and online learning was of interest to me, given what OSIP is saying, and how AOE has put out their position about virtual and blended and online learning. NASD is essentially saying that this is a priority area for them politically. They are working with OSIP. They are working with Congress as a group to look for, some of the parameters around what does this mean. Just raising the concern that NASD has in particular is in rural areas. The use or overuse perhaps of virtual services, which is symptomatic of shortages. And so that is something that we are talking about as a state, in terms of we definitely have been experiencing critical shortage areas across many areas. How does that impact decisions around virtual services? So it is a topic at hand, a topic we'll continue to review with you, but it's very much on the radar of national leaders in the area of special education. Great. Quick little sip. So for the other highlights, I would like to just promote some of the work that is going on with our program team, with our data team, our finance team, our assessment team, our dispute resolution team. I'll keep it very brief. This is not an exhaustive list, but just some things that are just like currently we are working on, daily, hourly, by the minute. First, by talking about OSIPs gave Vermont the determination status of needs assistance. So that's happened since the last time I talked to you. We were in needs intervention. We were able to elevate our status from our determination around our data. We still have a ways to go. I'd like you to rest assured that with our collaboration with you and being able to identify, where is it that we are losing points with OSIP scoring, we've got a handle on where those areas are. And so you are all working so hard, and you are engaged with us with the state performance plan indicators. You're engaged with particularly around indicator 13, post-secondary transition. We're looking forward to seeing change over time. And we know that it takes time for systemic change, for behavioral change. We know this. But we are just appreciative of your engagement with us as we seek to getting into a meets requirement determination, because this is all of us. This is your data that we are presenting to OSIP, and it's our way of data collection in the way that we are doing monitoring that we know can always be improved. But it's that relationship that we have, that we are on a trajectory of moving forward to meets requirements. Rule change work. This is something that we've been forecasting for a while. For technical assistance and professional development, we have been identifying resources. We have been getting feedback on those resources, on our guidance documents from a variety of folks in the field. Administrators and teachers and family members, the state education, special education advisory panel, our school psychologist organization, VCSEA, different folks are really helping give candid feedback on what we're preparing to launch as guidance, tools, and templates to help you with the rule changes. There's a launch of a new website. On that website, you'll find month by month our attempt to upload in advance a webinar that goes through guidance, that goes through any type of material or resources that we're uploading at this time, so you can watch in advance. So typically the first week of every month, we're going to be rolling out those webinars. So in the spirit of a flipped classroom model, we will subsequently weekly have different live office hours sessions to be able to go over with you what you heard from the webinar. So when you come to the live office hours sessions from November now through March, we don't aim to be doing a presentation where you have to sit there and listen to it. We have a good chunk of time. We blocked out of time of 9 to 11:30. You're not expected to be there from 9 to 11:30. That was a wide range of time that you could pop in to be able to ask your questions or listen to what your colleagues are asking, or networking with how others are incorporating or plan to incorporate some of this information into their own systems. A chance to ask questions directly, and then move out. We'll be able to have space enough for people to invite other team members if you wanted to bring in general education, some of your interventionist specialists, your principals. These rule changes, as we know, just impact everybody. These are school-wide changes that are going to happen. And we are collaborating with early childhood special education, our finance, early MTSS, Vermont MTSS, and our own internal Act 173 work group to make sure that all of these rule changes are aligned to all these moving parts. So you're not going to have to be scrambling to keep track of what initiative is related to what. We're making sure that these are all together in one spot, and ultimately these are stemming from the Act 173 work. So please come to our website. Chris Kane is leading the rollout of all of these activities. We'll be able to pause in March and go back and repeat what we did September through January after we learn what else needs to be tweaked, what else needs to be added, what needs to be eliminated, what did we get wrong? We have this time. I know that seems aggressive that we're marching like all these months towards this July 1st, 2022 deadline, but we do have time to figure this out and get it right. And we'll be doing a lot of interactive communication about what your needs are to be able to implement this well. Model procedures, we do have model procedures that we're forecasting to be out by next week. These are procedures that essentially are the rules, the rules of Vermont and the IDEA special education, proceduralized and personalized. So it's framed in a way that our district does these things. Our district engages in this work. Our district agrees that this is a requirement. And Vermont School Board Association reached out to us, and we talked about they were able to develop like a brief policy statement that as a district that you can decide if I'm going to adopt these policies or not. VCBA has crafted language for your district. The model procedures, these are not required to be adopted. However, if you do choose to adopt them, they are aligned with the requirements that we have for cyclic monitoring when we ask for policies and procedures. The hope is that this could save you from having to put together procedures into one document. We learned from districts that folks either had procedures all over the place, not housed in one location, perhaps lacked procedures at all, and were very overwhelmed with, how do I do this? You know, we just have the rules. That's what we have. It's not policies and procedures. Or some people had fully articulated procedures, but really just wanted to look at our recommendations of what should be included so they could tweak it. Any of those different models is completely acceptable. So this is not an add-on, and no need to be alarmed. This is hopefully gonna satisfy some, we talk about paperwork burden, that maybe this can help reduce a little bit of pressure from having to recreate the wheel if we are, you know, producing this model for you. So it's already, I said the end of October, and that's what we are marching towards. So people will have time to review, and you will have documentation to be able to provide to the program monitoring team if you are in cyclic monitoring. All right, now it's time to cruise through some more. Those, I think, were the biggest highlights I had to describe. The others are FYI. General Supervision System Manual in development. We are actively seeking ways to reduce the paperwork burden. We know that's one of the #1 reasons that people are burning out and are considering a leave from the profession or to go into another role in education. So this has been our commitment to you. There are some strategies that we have that will hopefully will be able to work with you. And we're going to be having a conversation about that in the coming weeks with directors. So these are some of the other events that we continue to do, and we appreciate it when you are able to attend and learn with us and to share. The last one, I did not write grant. IDA regular and ARP technical assistance and approval of grants. That is underway too, as you have been beginning to determine how you're going to use those supplemental funds. Some folks have come in with some great questions about what are allowable uses. And if it's allowable under IDEA sub-grant, the regular grant, it's allowable under ARP. And we are hoping you're using that opportunity to just get that extra that you needed, you know, that accessible playground equipment, or, you know, some of those other supplies that you need for your environment. This is an unprecedented opportunity to be able to see IDA getting closer and closer to the funding that was promised to us many years ago. Common calendar, we're working on that too, so that there is an easy way to look month by month across the different special ed categories of when to anticipate what is due. Very, you know, thank you for your patience on that. I think that's going to be a big help. I know we've been doing it through director check-ins, but you need a calendar. You need one, either on your desktop, on your bulletin board. That's coming. Special ed forms will be revised over the next, from now through late spring. We're going to be just giving them a facelift. We're going to hopefully make them as user-friendly as we can. I said that's going to be our intention. You're going to tell us if we met the mark on that one. But also in response to the rule changes, we'll be making sure that these forms are going to be, you know, ready for you to hit the ground running. We'll be able to forecast as early as possible. I know some of the forms at least are embedded within your own technological infrastructure. We're sensitive to that. We're aware of that. We just want to get it done right before we have you work with your vendor to make any of those tweaks and switches. So these are the other things that are going on in the division with technical assistance and alignment priorities. Also highlighting the critical shortage area work. These are some things that are underway. We had a great response rate to a practitioner survey and to a director survey that went out July, early August. specific around recruitment and retention efforts and some of the barriers of staying in the profession. We have so much to share with you all about the different patterns and trends that came out. Not going to be a lot of surprises. It's just that the triangulation just is incredible for being able to understand that. And we know from these data that there's a lot of things that we can be doing at the state level, and there's a lot of things that we can be discussing about happening at the local level to address those challenges. And it will be really, really good to just ground the conversation in the data that we received. For mentoring, we have Title II funds to look into a state-sponsored mentoring model that would be available for districts for their new special education teachers. We're calling this Project 1 and Project 2. Project 1 is this big picture. We got Title II funds to be able to explore what does this model look like for Vermont. And we're able to use resources to bring together mentors that have national reputations and publications and curriculum and books and things that they've written, come to Vermont virtually and help us look at what mentor modeling approach will work from Vermont. And I'm trying to let that emerge with our experts, given the needs and who we are as a state. And we'll be sharing out some of those different ideas with you across the year and securing resources so that we can scale up something over time, depending on what this looks like. And we know that mentoring and induction programs are a solution to retention and supporting first-year teachers. So we have that big picture, but we've also been pivoting to support the mentors that are working with those new special ed teachers that have been approved on that temporary waiver and got the provisional. Part of that criteria D of getting that provisional was working with a mentor. And beginning October 28th will be our first session with the mentors who are mentoring the new special ed teachers as part of our monthly live talk sessions. Will there be topics about best practices in responsive mentoring and also a community of practice opportunity to problem solve the needs of working with new special ed teachers who may or may not even have educational experience. So we're very fortunate to have Title II funds. We will be seeking additional funding opportunities to make sure that this is something that is sustainable and that can scale up. And that leads to many of us are engaged with the CEDAR work. CEDAR out of University of Florida. CEDAR is a national TA provider that is focused on educator preparation policy, and shortage needs areas such as some of the things that we're working through. So we do have a state task force that is that comes together on a monthly basis to be able to problem solve those issues. Monitoring, cycles have closed out. Local special ed determination letters have gone out. Those districts that are in needs intervention have been notified of needing to complete some corrective action plans or collaborative improvement plans. We have closed out some violations that were identified last year through an Office of Civil Rights report regarding some LEA and career technical education relationships around transition that were able to be closed out successfully. Planning for what we do about site visits in a virtual world. Our full staff is engaged constantly in working with data, but we also have data quarterly meetings where we bring all of these pieces together to help us determine the priorities and how the work that we're doing reflects a priority, so it's not all happening all over the place, so that there is a connection and we let data ground us. These are the folks that we are consulting with as national TA providers. With frequent calls, we meet with monthly with our OSEP state lead, Susan Murray. We have paraprofessional virtual trainings have been happening using the Edmodo platform to bring people together. We are getting ready for our OSEP site visit, although it's not it's like 18 to 24 months away. We've been taking inventory of like doing a gap and frequency analysis to make sure that we're going to be fully prepared to have a great targeted successful visit in the future. Special Education Advisory Panel has been an incredible partner in the work that we do. Special ed team representation on independent school approvals. Those IS approvals, we know that's been something that's been on many of your minds, and those visits are well underway for the 21-22 school year and beyond, and we are a part of that process. SBP APR improvement activities, SIP work, State Systemic Improvement Plan. We've had the first networking session is set for October 27th. We are very excited that we had several districts ready to be an SIP site and improve outcomes for students with disabilities in grades 3 and 4 and 5 with respect to math performance and taking advantage of systems coaches and instructional coaches. Indicator 8, that was another big initiative this year that we talked about last time, is the parent engagement survey and the use of that survey. We have completely worked with our vendor to tweak the survey items, and we got a lot of input from many of you, many parents as part of the special ed advisory panel. And as it says here, the preliminary indicator 8 survey results say that more than 70% of parents are responding positively about their involvement in their students' education. That's was that 38% or so, and kudos. I can't wait to drill down deeper into the data and that you all get your own copies in the near future so you can see specifically how your parents are talking to you through the screener. So data, it's also DMAT is our name for our data partners, and many of you have worked with Cassidy and Brandon. They work with us on a daily basis, that's for sure. They wanted to report out that the biggest development in DMAT is from June to October is the implementation of data quality checks on districts who reported low levels of high school exits. DMAT checked the percentage of high school students that were exited over the course of school year 2021 compared to the number of students reported in the December child count. And they reached out to districts who reported a low percentage of high schoolers exited, and DMAT provided a list of 12th graders and AW students and obtained information on 122 previously unreported exits, including 123 graduates. Just examples of being able to use our data, to be able to reach out and to find out not only is our data being coded and reported accurately, and do we understand data definitions, but now that we have our data, how do we use it as part of our program planning and part of our strategic planning? And DMAT, in addition to the work that our AOE special ed staff does, they're also here too as your partners in providing technical assistance on data use and how to consider continuous improvement opportunities. From our finance team, special education finance work being completed now, and in the previous 3 months, they just wanted to share out here, there's the final reconciliation of the FY21 special ed expense reports, the SEERs. FY21 CEIS and CCEIS collection deployed. So that's your coordinated early intervention services. That's the 15% voluntary funds, or the comprehensive coordinated early intervention services. That's the required 15% funds for districts that have been identified as significantly disproportionate in the areas of identification or a behavior or placement. FY22 special ed expense reports, the SEERs deployed, info sheet collected, and FY23 Act 173 special educations deployed. So work being completed now and what they have been working on. And then also to highlight special ed finance workflow processes and deadlines coming in the next 3 months is compilation, review, and follow-up as needed, FY21, CEIS, CCEIS collection, being able to follow up as needed on the special education plan, and the SEERs July through October, the FY22 SEERs are due. I know Jenna's really excited about this maintenance of effort, the MOE compilation criteria calculator that will be a tool and a benefit to so many folks. Fiscal monitoring risk assessment, December payments and projections. Oops. Okay, with dispute resolution, so many of you have gotten to know Claire through your own work with her and as part of our partner through Director's Check-In. If you are listening and you are an LEA, you know, Claire is leading up so much of the work around dispute resolution with Alex Langevin at working in partnership with building a whole new electronic technological platform through Salesforce to be able to track complaints, due process mediations, hearings, all of those things that require you know, a closer look at deadlines and you know, clocks ticking, and you know, being able to manage that through Excel has not always been the easiest thing to navigate. So we've been investing a lot using infrastructure that we already had in existence, but finding a way to manage these things just much more effectively. And we're like just waiting to be able to roll out our new version of the complaint form that's going to have the printable and virtual versions. We are working on getting them translated into multiple languages, and along the way, creating a dispute resolution manual that houses all of this information together so that everybody can understand that, and you know, having links to all the different forms and having the procedures clearly articulated. This has been a process that has taken time, but you know, it included a lot of vetting other states' work in other states that have success in having policies and procedures around the due process programming side of special education, wanting to be able to capture some of the best elements from these other states and Vermontize it in a way that you're going to appreciate, and it's going to be helpful in the work that you do. For assessment, we work very closely with the assessment. We work on through our data quarterly meetings. We're often working with academic achievement data and looking at success gaps and looking at performance of special populations. And we very closely work with Linda Moreno, who does alternative assessments and assessment work for special populations of learners. So these are some of the highlights being shared here. Alternate assessment, cannot edit student demographic information. Please work together to make sure all are trained and ready to administer the assessments in the spring. New publication outlining communication needs before, during, and after testing. So there's a link there to that information, as well as the district required communication guidance. There is a new assessment email right here that will go to a hub of folks that will get you the information that you need. As always, you can reach out to Linda Moreno as well, and she can fill you in with more information about where we're going with the alternative assessments, what's on the horizon, in addition to what do you need to know now and what do you need to be ready to implement for the next round of testing. So with medical exemptions, Linda's going to be handling those this year. And the submission link remains the same. Please, especially if you're new to the field, don't hesitate to reach out so she can provide you with that information that you need. As part of the peer review process and required documentation, the page of the IEP that contains testing accommodations may need to be submitted to the AOE for review. So that is another heads up. And this request will come in the spring as we begin to go into the field to observe testing. Not everyone's going to be required to submit, so stay tight or reach out to Linda with any of those questions. But as part of the routine monitoring requirements that we're supposed to do across all of those areas of general supervision, document, and have those documents just you know, coded, labeled, filed, archived, just somewhere in case we need to be able to sample those. And this could be for something like this situation with the alt assessment, which is having to go in and do a sampling of IEPs to look for alignment with accommodations. It could be like that in particular integrated monitoring activity, or it could be that we need to be able to produce LEA samples of information for our upcoming OSEP site visit. So thank you, and let us know if you have questions. With early childhood education, they're involved with this really great National 619 Early Childhood Education Affinity Group on the current topics. Monthly meetings with Part C. You know, we have that interagency coordinated agreement with our birth to 3 kids, and Katie McCarthy and her team are meeting frequently so that there's interagency connection and alignment and problem solving things such as Part C to B transition. And so there's also notice that there's a draft of a Vermont early MTS manual has been submitted to us from the vendors, which should be published in a few months. There are monthly early childhood special ed webinars with community of practice calls. Recorded webinars and slides are posted if they haven't been already. And they have a really cool tool, a little Padlet with ECSC 101 with resources, topics, and ongoing Q&A. And Katie and Amy are engaged in really hard work. So this is the final few minutes of the call. What we've been forecasting since January of this year, and thank you for your patience. I know some of you are tired of hearing about this, but it's so important that we set our state performance plan, annual performance review, 6-year targets for this year. These are due for our February 1st submission of the SPP APR. This is our highlight. This is our final push. We do want to hear your voice in your recommendations for where the targets that need to be changed, what your thoughts are. These affect all of us. It affects our state determination. It affects your local special education determinations. It's public facing. It's what the public sees along the OSEP measures. These are not AOE measures. These are federal measures. Now's the time to use your voice. You know, are we looking for aspirational targets? Are we looking for realistic targets? Are we looking for targets that increase incrementally over 6 years? Do we keep them all the same and in the last year do a jump? It's wide open to how we do this, and getting your collective voice to give input isn't not only important, but OSEP says it is required. They want engagement. They don't want just a checkbox. They really want to see how the SEA is working with its stakeholders to make some of these decisions. All of this information is on our website, and you've been presented with it in various capacities. So these are the targets that have a yes that we're going to be seeking to change. They are fully described on the website. There's a link to our SPP APR webpage. There are input forms. public input forms. They are electronic. You just download them and you are able to submit, and they go directly to our agency. And the fabulous Anna Kolbach is our SPP APR coordinator. She's going to be working to combine all of the responses from stakeholders and be able to make some sense of all the things that are coming in, and with clear transparency as we do, work with a subgroup of folks to make up with some formal recommendations for AOE leadership before it goes into a submission to OSIP. So target proposals may be submitted, as I said, a specific number as a range, may be submitted for all indicators or just one, but just let us know. Let us know what you're thinking. And finally, some upcoming due dates. So the target setting due dates, November 15th. Again, the website is a great space to go, but if you just want to work with Anna and reach out, she is super responsive and really wants to hear what you have to say. Child count training is set for 1 p.m. on November 16th. Cassidy put some information on this in the most recent nuggets, and I anticipate she'll get you out a reminder too, since, this will be, she'll get out a reminder via the listserv as well. John wanted me to share that peer learning sessions for Indicator 13 and a statewide Indicator 13 training are on the AOE calendar. If you would like more information, for some folks it is required, for some folks you're invited. For some folks who this is the first time they're hearing about this, please check out the dates. And if you want to know if it's appropriate for you and your team, reach out to John directly. Rule changes site and all upcoming office hours and resources are found here at our rule change site. The first week of November, we will be uploading webinars with respect to how the change, the definition of special education, how it's defaulted to federal, how that impacts you, as well as specially designed instruction and what that means. Also parent input, and then some of the changes to goal writing. So that's in the queue for November. And then you can see the rest of the schedule on that website. From assessments, LCI is due Friday, October 22nd, and LEA notification of 1% survey is due Friday, November 5th. From monitoring, the spreadsheets for the annual dates review are now available, and monitoring intends to have a Q&A session on December 15th for those with January 15th submission. So if you're in cyclic, that is you. And February 15th is going to be a review session for those. That's for people in both the cyclic and selective. March 15th, if they've got submissions due, this is going to be a time for you to make sure that you are clear on what you need to provide. And then finally on this piece, we put out on our nuggets, our nuggets last time, that we would love to have a section in the nuggets where you nominate your peers for recognition. If you've got folks getting accolades in the form of awards, or just have a best practice you just think that the public should know about, please just brag about your peers, brag about yourself. Send us some great things that we can share throughout the state about what's going on, because you are such unsung heroes if you are an LEA member and you're listening in and you get these recognitions, and we want to recognize them with you. So please send anything about yourself or peers to our nuggets, and we have a dedicated section for that moving forward. And finally, just a reminder, special ed team website, ways to request professional development, our 24/7. This is the best way to get responsive information no matter what your question is. Just go right to aoe.specialed@vermont.gov. That puts your question or inquiry into the queue, and we can determine who quickly can respond and get you the information that you need. It's often better to use this as a central location rather than going to individual folks. And folks like Sabina are trailing it to make sure that answer is given out. So I recommend that course of action for inquiries and then for your regional representatives. And then these are ways to do requests for data. If you just have data on your own district, or if you're fact checking, or if you're doing research, this still goes through Cassidy Kanzani, but this is a way for her to keep everything organized. So thank you for the opportunity to serve as your state director, and to to have you working often with our caring staff within the AOE. It's just such a privilege for all of us to serve you and to seek statewide solutions and resources. We've all certainly have challenges, all of us. Certainly the ones that LEAs and families are encountering are quite extraordinary, and you all continue to advocate for your needs with us while holding up systems, right? That's what you're doing, and you're keeping your people and your communities together, and you have a right to be concerned. You have a duty to ask questions. You have an opportunity to weigh in on agency work and efforts, and you do, and we appreciate you, and we're privileged to work alongside you. And we aim to be as clear and transparent every step of the way. So thank you again for joining in. I'll see you in a few months with anything new, and I really hope that you have a great weekend. Thank you for your time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.